We start with a historic water shortage on Lake Mead, coming amid what experts say is the worst drought in the last 1,000 years. This shortage was expected and plans were made. The Tier 1 shortage was declared under a 2-year-old agreement among the western states. It reduces Arizona's water allotment by enough water to supply 1 million to 1.5 million homes for a year. The brunt of the cuts, though, will be absorbed by farmers, most of them in Pinal County. Their livelihoods are now in danger. Looking ahead, deeper cuts are likely in the next 4 or 5 years, affecting tens of millions of water users in the West, including Metro Phoenix. Joining us now, Dave White, Deputy Director of the Global Institute of Sustainability at Arizona State University. He's one of the leading water experts in Arizona, and he wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post last week. It was headlined, "What to Do About the Colorado River's Mega Drought, Code Red." Dave, welcome back to Square Off.
Thank you, Bram. It's great to join you again.
We've spoken many times in the past. I've known you as a pretty level-headed guy, but that's a big, scary statement, Code Red. Why is the water shortage on the Colorado that bad?
Well, this announcement of a declaration of a water shortage on the Colorado River coming by the Bureau of Reclamation comes just a few days after the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change declared a, quote, code red for humanity based on the climate crisis and our lack of action and climate adaptation in the face of this crisis. The shortage declaration on the Colorado River represents the regional impacts of those climate changes, as well as the long-term drought and the so-called structural deficit, whereby society in our different sectors, cities, farmers, the environment, are simply demanding more from the river than the river can provide.
And so given that, and given that you're calling this a code red, folks here are going to wonder, is this place going to be livable in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? What do you say to that?
Yes, absolutely. So fortunately, water managers and the various stakeholders from different sectors, from agriculture, municipal, industrial, and environmental interests, have been collaborating, anticipating, and planning for this declaration, as well as the long-term water sustainability and security of the region for decades and even more than a century. And so we do have tools, we do have plans, and we have actions that we can take to be able to increase our security and sustainability. However, this declaration is a pivotal moment, and it really represents an important window of opportunity for us to increase what I would say radical collaboration, radical cooperation, coming together to really ensure the long-term regional success and vitality of not just Arizona and the Southwest, but really of the nation. It's incredibly important how vital this area is to the rest of the country as well.
We hear, plans were made, everything's under control. A reporter I really respect said, don't freak out. And yet it seems pretty clear to me that Lake Mead is being depleted faster than most of the experts thought or prepared for. Am I right on that?
We are seeing the impacts of the drought, of climate change, especially decreases in surface water availability and significant increases in temperature, as well as the declines and resulting in the declines in Lake Mead. And we are seeing some of the least desirable scenarios, I'll say, from our projections and predictions. And because of some of the physical geography of the lake, think of it as a giant V. As the declines go lower and lower, we start to see more rapid decline because of the physical geography of the reservoir. So absolutely, both of those facts can be true, Bram. We can be planning, we can be anticipating, but we can also take this as a very serious moment that requires interventions and requires what I would call some transformational changes in the way that we allocate and use water across the West.
And not just allocate and use water, but what about growth? That plays a big role as well. Arizona has added 1 million people in each of the last 2 decades, plus the businesses and the industries that attracts. Can we sustain that kind of growth given what you're describing about the river?
Well, what I would focus on is not the absolute growth, not the number of people or the number of businesses, but I would encourage people to talk about the efficiencies with which we use water. And so while we have grown in terms of population, we've also become significantly more efficient on a per capita basis. So we've instituted a number of water saving technologies, both in the home, in industries, and in the agricultural sector. So it's not about the total number of people or businesses, but how efficient we are across all of the sectors that use water. So we really need to drive up those efficiencies and drive conservation through a variety of demand management strategies across all sectors.
So you've declared a code red emergency. You're calling for a moonshot to deal with it. Sounds pretty significant. What are the two or three pieces of that moonshot?
So I would suggest radical conservation and demand management is at the top of the list. So this is becoming much more efficient, as I suggested, across all sectors. So in the municipal sector, water saving technology throughout the home, improved conservation in outdoor landscaping. So irrigated landscaping in our yards, becoming more efficient using more desert adapted landscaping in our cities. In agriculture, radical conservation through drip irrigation systems and other efforts to look at the crop choices that we make in this arid region and focusing on those crops that are of the highest value, the highest production, but the lower water using. Similar in the industrial sector, focusing on recycling, reuse, and commercial technology to be able to treat and even reuse or recycle municipal and industrial wastewater for a variety of other purposes, increasing our efficiencies there. And then thinking about solutions such as desalination, partnering with Mexico to develop desalination on the coast of Mexico to free up Colorado River water for use in the United States while providing a more secure supply for the nation of Mexico. Those are all solutions that I think should be looked at very seriously by our water managers and politicians.
So how will people think about it in terms of me, certainly the way I think about it, the effect on my life? So how would this change my life, and how much could this cost me in the future?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think so. Folks always want to know, what can I do and how can I engage? So one of the easiest things people can do is to think about how they can be more efficient at home. So just first step is understanding, what is your water use. Looking at your utility at Salt River Project or your city water bill, understanding what your monthly usage is, getting a water audit. Many cities offer free water audits or water conservation programs. Thinking about how you can install low flow toilets, low flow shower heads, increasing the efficiency inside your home. Looking at your irrigation systems in your lawns and figuring out how you can reduce the water consumption in your landscaping. Those are all actions that people can take at home. And then it's really important that people engage. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your local politicians, talk to your representatives to the U.S. And the Arizona House and Senate, and ask them, what solutions are you putting forward? How are you helping to address this issue?
And so let's end on that note. We have an election coming up next year. Governor, that race is open. Senate seat, Mark Kelly running again. What would you put at the top of the to-do list for our elected officials to get people talking about water, because we just avoid the subject?
I will say the single most important recommendation I would make is that water is a nonpartisan issue. Water is an issue there where we should have consensus across political parties and across ideologies. It is a critical element of our social, economic, and environmental vitality. It's an important reason why our region is such a popular region and has such high quality of life. And therefore, we cannot allow this issue to be politicized. It must be seen as a nonpartisan or a bipartisan issue where we work not only across the political parties, but across different interests, including incorporating the perspectives of our Native American tribal communities, incorporating the perspectives of environmental organization representatives, of local and rural communities, of agricultural groups. The leaders of the state really need to pull people together to address this as a common cause.
Dave White, we'll end on that note. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Bram.